Hello, I'm Lucy, owner of Mockingbird, and this is the first of our series of sewing tutorials. Today we're going to start with the basics. We're going to look at measuring your child for a garment, and then we're going to move on to looking at the pattern leaflets in more detail. So when you get your pattern leaflet, what you're going to find on the back is a table of measurements, either at the top or down the side. Now these measurements are standard measurements for particular ages of children. What I would recommend is that you don't go by these measurements and ages alone for your child. It's much safer for you to take the measurements for your child first. It can be notoriously difficult, but I'm going to share with you some tips that will make it slightly easier. Now the measurements I'm going to take today are on Dolly the mannequin, just because she stays still for a little longer than my little one. You can pick these mannequins up quite cheaply on the internet, or you can go up to the more expensive models which have adjustable sizings depending on the age of the child. Personally, I use these. They're a really reliable way of doing things, and they also help you when it comes to hanging something like a dress. They help your dress to hang properly so you can see the shape before you hem it, but we will talk about that in more detail later. So there are three basic measurements, body measurements you want to take before you embark on your project. The first one is the chest measurement, the second is the waist measurement, and the third is the hip measurement. You also need a vertical measurement, which is the height, so from the top of the head to the flats of the feet. You've got under the arm measurements, so you're looking at these here. Then you've got the waist measurement, which is here. Now on adults, finding the waist measurement is much easier than on a child, usually because of their little tummies when they're really young. One tip I can share with you is if you ask your child to bend over and touch their toes, the child will naturally crease in the middle of their stomach, and that is their natural waist measurement. That's where you should be taking. The final measurement is the hip measurement, and that's just here. So that's the widest part of your child, but including the top part of the bum. So you've got your three measurements. Now, as I mentioned earlier, on the back of all of your pattern leaflets and also online, you can find standardised tables that then match those measurements to an age of a child. Don't get too strict about these. Obviously, it's best they're not too small. What you want really is wiggle room for your child. So if they are slightly bigger and they vary in general areas, don't worry about it, because the child, as I say, needs room to move and to grow. Now, children's proportions for boys and girls are pretty much the same below the age of 7. So you'll find that this sort of mannequin does for either of those. After 7, the relative proportions do vary a little bit, so that's when more careful measuring comes into play. In terms of keeping your little one still long enough for you to take the measurements, there is another tip you can use. If you find a piece of clothing that fits your child perfectly, I find baby grows vests, things like that work really well for this, then you can take the measurements, lie the clothing flat on a piece of table, take the measurements across the clothing. Do remember to double them though, or you will end up with a really tiny garment at the end of it. Same with bibs. We are going to make a bib later on. What I would recommend with bibs, if you're taking a measurement, is to measure an existing bib rather than putting something around your child's neck. Much safer to measure an existing bib or a collar line that they've already got. So once you've got your three sets of measurements and the height, that does help for things like dresses and trousers as well, then you need to go and get your pattern. Now I'd recommend that you start with a basic pattern to begin with, rather than designing something off your own back, unless you're feeling particularly ambitious. You can get patterns from major stores. They look like this. You'll find major manufacturers, people like McCall's here, and Butterick and Simplicity. But don't discount the independent designers as well, because I find that some of their designs are really quite quirky and do leave you open with more options in terms of adapting to suit what you want. The other thing to watch out for really carefully is that often manufacturers divide their patterns into two sets of sizings. So for example, this one I've got here is 2, 3, 4 and 5. This one's 3 to 8. And this one is 2, 3, 4 and 5 again. You can also get 6 months to 3 years and then 4 to 7. Look really carefully at the aging on your patterns, because the last thing you want to do is come home with a pattern that's not going to fit your child. If in doubt, buy something slightly bigger, because that way they'll grow into it and you won't have wasted the time that you've just spent learning to sew, making something too small. Okay, so let's move on to the next stage, which is reading your pattern leaflets. So chances are you'll have an idea of the sort of garment that you want to create already, and there are literally hundreds of patterns out there for you to choose from. I've chosen these two just to give you a good illustration of the sort of things you'll be looking at. Now, some manufacturers, like this one from McCall's, produce learn to sew for fun or easy patterns. These are the patterns I'd recommend for novice sewers, just to begin with. So fast forward now, you've chosen your garment, you've chosen your pattern. Let's look at the pattern leaflet in more detail. On the front, you've got an image of the finished garments. Don't be put off by the colourways used. It's like buying a house. You have to imagine it as a neutral, and something that you can add your own fit onto later. You're going to be choosing the fabrics, you're going to be choosing the notions, so they're the little added bits, things like ribbon. So you're going to be helping to create the final design. So these are literally just the shapes or the outlines of your garment, and they also show you how they will sit on your child. If you turn your leaflet over, I'm going to use this one because it's slightly more standardised. Okay, like that. If you turn your leaflet over, you'll find, first of all, the sizing that I mentioned earlier. So here, on the Simplicity leaflet, is the sizing. The ages listed along the bottom here, and the chest, waist, hips, and back measurement actually as well on this one are listed here. Also the height. Now, next to the body measurements, you'll find again another list, an outline drawing of all of the dresses and accompanying bits that you can create. So for example, this pattern includes handbags and a hairband, but it'll show you all of these on the back, so it's well worth turning your leaflet over. Fabric choice will affect the way that your finished garment sits on the body. You don't want something really heavy for a floaty dress, for example, so you don't want something like denim or wool. So here they've recommended gingham fabrics, linen types, calico, broadcloth poplin, things like that. So you've also got here underneath the fabrics your notions. Now your notions are the extras that you need to complete your garment. They're finishings, fastenings, interfacing, things like that. Now make sure you purchase these with your material. I can't tell you how frustrating it is to have to stop sewing mid-flow because you need a button, it's Sunday, the shops are closed. So frustrating. So make sure that after you bought your leaflet, you turn over the leaflet, look at the notions and purchase what's on the back of there. That's it in a nutshell, your basics. You now know how to take measurements from your child and also how to read your pattern leaflet. If you have any issues, really please message me. I'm only on the other end of the internet and I would be happy to help you. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all ready to go next week.